Well, hello and welcome to another preview here on the Fulhamish YouTube channel. And after two contrasting but ultimately testing away trips for Fulham, we're back at Craven Cottage on Saturday. The lunchtime kickoff to face Watford. Leave your predictions in the comments below and make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Today, to give us a bit of a lowdown on our opponents on Saturday, I've got Mike from the award-nominated From The Rookery End podcast. We met him last year at the FSF Awards when we were both nominated. They're a fantastic podcast, so if you have any Watford friends or family, make sure they're listening to it if they're not already. Mike, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Award nominated, a bit like Watford, so near yet so far.
Hey, we're in the same category and we're more than happy to take it and run with it till the cows come home, to be perfectly honest. Mike, it's an interesting game on Saturday. We both had defeats at the weekend, albeit your defeat came after 4 fantastic wins in a row, a 100% record. People were talking about you winning the title and all this crazy stuff. Can you get back to winning ways? Are you expecting to get back to winning ways on Saturday?
Well, can I just stop you there? People were talking about us winning the title. We're still very much in the mix, mate. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah.
This game is really interesting for us, I think, because we were talking about it after the United game. And, of course, there was an incredible amount of media attention on Watford in that build-up. There was the international break, so there was 2 weeks extra to talk about the Premier League. And we're sort of back to the bread and butter now, Watford. The bubble's been burst to a degree, although losing to United is... Although they're not still at the peak of their powers, I don't think it's any disgrace, especially with the second half performance that Watford turned in. I think we were probably unlucky not to get a point. But, you know, that unbeaten record is gone. We have lost at home. And now it's back to the bread and butter. And it'd be fascinating to see how we do against a side who, at the start of the season, you put kind of in the same bracket as us. Before we go any further, of course, it's a great opportunity for us Watford fans to say a massive thank you to Slav, because we haven't seen him since he got us promoted, and he has a special place in all of our hearts at Watford. So everyone's very excited to see him, and he's guaranteed a very warm welcome from the away fans.
Well, that was my next question. Obviously, Slavisa facing his old club. He had a small time in Israel in between, but there wasn't really much time between him taking Watford up and then joining Fulham just the season after. You were mesmerising that season. When you came to Craven Cottage, it was actually the start, really, I feel, of your promotion run. When you came to us, you hadn't been particularly great up until then. You won 5-0. You absolutely battered us. Gabor Karai had an absolute mare in goal for Fulham, I seem to remember. What are your memories of Slav that season?
His ability to change a game, I think, his bravery and his confidence in using the squad. I remember one particular game where he made a sub. I think it might have actually been that pivotal game away at Brighton where we actually secured the title. He made a substitution after 20 minutes. He was very brave. But overall, the memories were just fabulous. He was wholehearted. He was just great. He was just, I haven't got the superlatives. We're talking, 9 o'clock in the morning. I haven't got the thesaurus out to crank my brain into gear to do credit to Slav and how important he was to us that season, because he didn't get the full season, but he got the best out of that squad of players. He was able to turn games around when things weren't going our way, and he got the consistency that you need from it. Well, as you guys know, to get out of the Championship. So, yeah, he got us playing really good football. Goals were flying in all over the place. And ultimately, we ended up in the Premier League and we haven't looked back. So, yeah, just a massive vote of thanks to Slav. And he just got us purring, like you say, that season. It was one of the most memorable seasons in recent Watford history, certainly, and largely down to Slavisa.
Do you see him going on to really great things as a manager? Because I'm adamant that after Fulham, and I know that time will come eventually, he's going to join a big club and it's going to be a huge success for him. I just think the sky's the limit. His managerial ability is that highly regarded amongst definitely us, and it seems like you guys as well.
Yeah, it's great, and I think his tactical nous is something, and I think the players respect him, don't they? And and he gets the supporters on board, possibly because he looks like the most terrifying hitman in history. But I think he gets people, very much like Javi Gracia at Watford. People respect him, people fall in behind him, and you get the whole club, you get the whole substructure, if you like, the whole of everything, the whole orbit around your football club seems to be behind Slav when he gets things going. So in that regard, I think, I do wonder how he's regarded outside perhaps Fulham and Watford circles, whether he's still, whether people take much notice, to be fair. So it'd be interesting. I agree with you. I think he could take a bigger job. He kept an eye on him when he moved to Fulham, and I don't know the reasons behind it, but it was a relatively slow start, wasn't it? He had a difficult start to
there's lots of factors.
Didn't quite go his way from the get-go. So it'd be, I don't know. I'd like to see him get a decent job, because I think not that he hasn't got a decent job already, of course, but a crack at one of the big boys. I just wonder whether he's on the radar. I wonder whether, when United are looking for their manager, or PSG or Juve or whoever, whether he's quite in that bracket. And because it's the age-old story, Watford, Fulham, still relatively unfashionable clubs, and do managers, head coaches, players from our clubs get involved in the conversation? I'm not sure. And personally, part of me quite likes that. I think it's nice that we've got our own little secret, isn't it?
Exactly. Let's talk about some of your players. I mean, Watford, by a lot of people, were tipped to be in and around the relegation spot. I'm not saying that you won't be. You've had a fantastic start, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But I've got a lot of time for much of your squad. Now, everyone loves to go on about Troy Deeney and his fantastical physical presence up front. But for me, love Etienne Capoue. I think he is such a brilliant player. And for me, Will Hughes is someone that I've always had my eye on ever since his Derby County days. And I really thought he was a cut above championship level whenever he played for them. Who are the players that really make this Watford team tick in your eyes?
Well, we'll just pick up on Troy, and you talk about his physicality. I think it's worth saying, the stats have been banded around a little bit this week, as he'd been mentioned in the England frame, but the amount of assists that Troy creates and the chances he creates is something else, and that's not just down to his physicality. He's matured as a footballer probably over our Premiership sort of stint. He's improved a great deal, and there's more to Troy than just that sort of battering ram that people like to think and like to pigeonhole him as. So I know that's not what you were suggesting, but I think it is worth saying that there's probably a little bit more to Troy's game than people might expect. The two guys you mentioned there, I mean, Will Hughes is absolutely, what an incredible player, and a couple of million quid from Derby, an absolute snip. I think we benefited from Will Hughes' unfortunate record with injury. I think if he hadn't had those two serious injuries at Derby, I think it's almost certain that a top six club would have picked him up, because anyone who's seen him knows what a great player he is. He's tenacious, he's hard-working, he's tough battling. He looks very slight, but he's actually incredibly tough and hard to get off the ball. And he can pick an incredible pass. He gets you moving from front to back, and he can score goals as well. He's got a shot on him. If those of you that saw the game away at Burnley on Match of the Day, he slammed one in from 20 yards. So Will Hughes is an incredible player. Etienne Capoue, another one that you mentioned, vastly underrated. I think on his day, Etienne Capoue is probably one of the best Premier League midfielders in the division. However, I think, as with most players at a certain level, has he got the mental aptitude to take it to the next level, to be consistent week in, week out? We've seen it at Watford. The answer is no. He does. He tends to start games start seasons very positively, and then when the going gets a bit harder, when suspensions kick in, when we haven't got our first starting 11 due to injury, when it's cold, he seems to go off the boil a bit. But a great player. In terms of who's really making us tick this year, Bobby Pereira is one who has really caught the eye. He started the season in goal-scoring fashion. He's got 2 or 3 goals this season, and he's an absolute Rolls Royce of a player. He's played at Juventus. He's got Champions League experience, so he glides around the pitch, and he can cause real difficulty for defenders. He's really difficult to pin down. So he's one I'd certainly keep an eye on. His midfield partner, Abdoulaye Doucouré, is another one that probably people know a lot of. I think when you see him in the flesh, you'll realise what a good player he is. Just gets around the park, puts a lot of effort in, and he's another one. Tough tackling, long legs, rangy, difficult to get the ball off, difficult to get past. He wins the ball back, but he can pick a pass as well, and he's got a shot in him as well. So I think the thing about Watford is we've always had a good squad. We've always assembled players with good pedigree, but perhaps that slight question mark over them, whether it's injuries, whether it's a bit of mental application, and that's ultimately that's why they end up at Watford. But we've always had a very, very good squad, and the difficulty we've had is melding them together and getting them to perform on a consistent basis. And much like I said about Slav, how the club and the fans and the staff and everyone rallies behind him, it feels like Javi Gracia has got that magic touch at Watford as well, and he's getting the best out of players who sometimes would have been a bit patchy. I think perhaps the best example is one who comes under the radar a bit is Jose Holebas, who plays at sort of left back, left wing back. Can get forward a lot. He's got a shot on him. Gets in positions where he should be able to deliver threatening balls a lot. And previously, we've seen his temper get the better of him, his temperament perhaps getting in the way of his performances. But this year, I think he might even have the most assists in the Premier League. So he's a real good case study, a player who's got a lot of talent, but previously was letting other things get in the way. Whether under Javi Gracia, he's actually starting to deliver. So yeah, plenty of players to look out for, I'm afraid, for you guys.
The ancient Greek's still got him some life in him yet then?
Absolutely, he has, yes.
But part of the problem I feel for Watford is great players. You've had a great turnover of talent come to Vicarage Road, but you haven't had a manager that's stuck. It looks like with Javi Gracia, you maybe have that man. It's the first time that you've started a season with a kind of set, assembled manager in place. What kind of style of football does he employ?
I mean, I think he is pragmatic. I think Watford tend to start games quite slowly. I think Ian Wright picked up on that on Match of the Day, and I think it's a fair point. They tend to feel their way into games and work out how they're going to best get a result. Last season, he inherited an absolute mess after the Marco Silva debacle, so difficult to judge on last year. But I think he was working towards this season last year, which is why some of the performance suffered. But there's been a lot of talk about him playing Troy Deeney and Andre Gray up front, sort of going back to that out of favour, really, two strikers up front, which has probably been the biggest talking point, and it's worked really well. Troy comes a little bit deep sometimes. Andre Gray's they're shifting defenders around, but he looks to be solid defensively, but looks to break very, very quickly. We've got two wing backs in Holebas and Daryl Janmat, who's someone that most people will know a fair bit about. So yeah, we look to be solid, and you've got people like Decore and Will Hughes in the middle there who can form that solid platform, do the hard work, and allow Pereira to do his thing as well. So we'll look to be solid, but also look to attack very, very quickly. Use the flanks, get bomb on with those two wing backs, and yeah, it's been really exciting. Watford have scored lots of goals. I think the interesting thing about Fulham will be, I think this will be, in a way, our biggest test, because I think you guys at home will absolutely go for us and be looking to put us on the back foot defensively. And to be fair, we haven't had that many questions asked of us defensively. The teams we've played have set up in a certain way where, almost similar to us really, sort of sounding each other out, and we've managed to just about get the other upper hand. We haven't battered anyone, and we haven't been battered ourselves. But I think Fulham will pose a very, very different challenge, because as we know, Slav will want to go for it. And I do have question marks over us defensively. I think Janmat and Holebas are both good going forward. Cabaselli, a Belgian international, at the heart of in the centre back, paired up with another international, Craig Cathcart. All great players, but all have mistakes in them, and can all be made to look quite silly with respect to those guys. They can make mistakes, so it'll be fascinating to see with all the attacking intent and the attacking talent that Fulham have, how we stand up to that.
Indeed. So finally, Mike, what is your prediction for the game on Saturday? Who's going to get back to winning ways, or is it going to be back to drawing ways?
I think, do you know what? I'll definitely take a draw at this stage. I think this is going to be a really, really tough game for Watford. I'm sure Fulham will have this circled in their diaries, an opportunity to pick up 3 points. I think the crowd will be the same, so they're behind them. Watford has a bit of more expectation on them now, and no matter how you dress it up, that does have an impact, I think, on the supporters and the way they approach the game. So Watford fans, I think the majority will be hoping for an away win. But personally, I'd take a score draw here. I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think people at home watching on Sky with their lunch will enjoy it. I think it's going to be a cracking 2-2.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike, from the Rookery End podcast, for appearing on Fulhamish today.
No worries at all. Enjoy the game, and look forward to seeing you at Vicarage Road.
Absolute pleasure. And make sure you subscribe to the Fulhamish channel. Leave your predictions in the comments below and check out Dave Preston's On the Road video from Manchester City. Fulhamish will be back on YouTube over the weekend with a full-time reaction to a Saturday's game, and also there'll be fan cams coming out as well. So we'll see you again soon.
Come on, Fulham!